Welcome to the new episode in this series where I seek to honor my departed first child, Temidayo, who passed away on the 22nd of September 2023. Today, I'm not going to make it too somber. I'm going to tell you who Temidayo really was, the little that I know about him, because as it turned out, I knew too little. I didn't know a lot about my own son. After all, I didn't know he was suffering from bouts of depression. So I'm going to tell you what I know about him, his childhood and his adulthood. Dayo was born on the 21st of June 1993. He was born on the first day of the summer in 1993, and it was just love at first sight. I'd never been a father before. That was really something, a miracle. Everybody who has been a father or a mother will say their baby was the most beautiful in the world. Of course, mine was the most beautiful baby in the world, but it was just the special atmosphere seeing my son come out of his mother. It will always be my greatest achievement, being a father. It's something that only people who have been in those situations can really understand. The first few months went well, like any other baby. Because I was not living with the mother, I always was there in the weekend. I was there Fridays to Sundays. So the mother obviously took care of him during the week, and I did that during the weekend. I think the first 2 years of his life, I was there almost every weekend. I still, under the circumstance, saw him grow. Dayo could not or would not walk until I think he was 18 or 19 months old. I remember as a father, I was so proud of him. If I was walking with him on the street, maybe with his mother, I was the one pushing the pram, and people were always looking like, why is a man pushing the pram? I'm talking of 30 years ago. In terms of Europe being always progressive, just 30 years ago, it was not something that a man did. It was like a novelty for a lot of people. I remember the day the first kind of tragedy struck. We were eating. He sat in his baby chair. We were just eating bread and peanut butter. And all of a sudden, he started having epileptic attack. I mean, I've seen people with epilepsy before, but this was my baby, helpless, just having all this spastic movement, and I didn't know what to do. I was panicking, so put my finger in his mouth to prevent him from swallowing his tongue. I almost bit that finger off because he didn't know what he was doing. It just went off, and all of a sudden it stopped, but the whole epileptic movement, spasm, lasted maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, but in my world, in my panic, it must have lasted like an hour. That was the time before mobile telephone, so there was no way I could reach the mom. I think somehow, I don't remember now it's 30 years ago, so my memory fails me a bit, but somehow the mother was alerted. I think it was also on the day that the mother was supposed to come back home. So we took him to the doctor, and everything seemed okay, but then it continued. He was just about 2.5 years old. And that was not a nice thing to see. Your kid stands up, he wants to start to talk, and then he goes like that, he falls, loses control, and that happened with him. That kind of epileptic attack happened with him like 40 times a day. So much so that he was brought to the hospital and he was kept there. I think he spent about between 3 to 4 months, or maybe even half a year at the hospital. They had to give him a helmet so that when he falls, it doesn't hurt his head. That was also a time when everybody showed love, all the love that you could expect he got from his grandparents or those who are very sweet people with him. But he stayed there, and then I think one time after they did all the tests, the doctor came to us and said, yeah, I don't remember because it's 30 years ago. He had a very rare type of epilepsy, which only 10% of the people affected go ahead and have a normal life. The other ones, they become mentally and possibly physically challenged. And that was not the news I was waiting for, not the news that was expected, not the news I was hoping deep inside that he would be one of the 10%, but the prognosis was not positive. So they kept him there, gave him all the medicine, but it was still not helping. So I thought, like, let me give my parents a call in Nigeria. Western medicine is great, but most of the Western medicine, they are sourced from things that are derived in Africa. Everybody knows a traditional doctor that works with tree leaves that you combine. They know if you have this, you can combine this kind of tree leaves with that kind of tree leaves, and then you get relief from it. So I called, and naturally my parents were really very shocked, but they said, don't worry, we will send you the medicine as soon as we can get it. And so they did that. He's in the hospital. How are we going to administer traditional medicine when it's in a Western hospital and under all kinds of supervision? I spoke with the grandmother. When he was admitted at the hospital, he could go to them for like a couple of hours, but he had to come back to the children's ward to sleep. And so the grandparents were the ones to administer it, but I was there the first time, and I was like, Dayo, this is going to be bitter, but you have to take it. He just took it like a champ. The grandmother, sweet lady she is, helped in that way. Like I said, during his funeral, maybe it's a coincidence, but already after 2-3 days, the amount of time he was falling from epileptic attack reduced from like 40 times a day to like 10 times. And in time, it completely was on a manageable level, like once or twice a day, that he was discharged within weeks. Maybe it's a combination of both that work, but yeah, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it has nothing to do with it. But that is the story. Fast forward, he grew up, went to school, primary school, had a nice time in school. When his youngest brother was born, that was a sweet moment, like a proud brother. As soon as he got into the high school, he was also coming down by himself to me. I remember the first time he was so proud of himself that I think he was just 12 or 13. He could do that all by himself. He was not the brightest with school. He hated school. All my children hated, and some of them still hate school. So it was not the best moment of his life. From what I now hear later, that was also when the feeling of depression began. But he has always been interested in Nigeria, and I remember I've always been planning to take them to Nigeria, but I was always finding one excuse or the other that I kept postponing. And then there was a period just before, I think between the ages of 14, that was the first time we actually lost contact. Somehow he was not feeling comfortable with me, which I later heard from his mom, that he was not always happy when he came to me, that I was always being an African father, too strict, wanting him to be the perfect boy. He knew I loved him, but I made him feel uncomfortable. You know, you are with your European mother who gives you all the freedom in the world, and we as African, my generation, were brought up to keep a tight rein on your child. And I wasn't even the strictest of dad, but somehow he felt that I was too strict with him, and so he decided to stay away. That was for me a very painful period, because I did all I could to get in touch with him, but he would not pick the phone. It was always the mother, and yeah. And then hearing the mother at that time saying he doesn't want to talk to you, that broke my heart. I didn't know why until later, but that happened. But then somehow we got back in touch, because finally I decided to take them to Nigeria. So I had to call him to say, hey, you always wanted to go to Nigeria. And the moment he had Nigeria, he just wanted to go, which was going to be his first time. He was always very curious. I remember us getting to Nigeria and landing at the airport, and both he and the youngest brother were really, they felt at home, felt comfortable, curious about everything. Ate the same thing we ate, happy, wanting to visit every place, just like going to the beaches and writing their names on the sand. That was the first time he got a Nigerian football jersey with his name on it. It was a nice 2 weeks we spent in Nigeria visiting my parents' home naturally, but also their ancestral city and home, and visiting some tourist places, doing everything any Nigerian child would do. It was a very nice visit. And then we came back, and he took the train back, and somehow that was the last time I saw him for like 6 years, because I had a feeling he had seen Nigeria, he has gone there, and he had other things he wanted to do with his life. Those are things that I heard later, but that was also with the depression. That was apparently when he was also going to see the therapist, but later turned out in later life that was not actually treating him in a serious manner like he would have wanted. At a point I just thought like, well, I cannot force myself on him, so I just kept my distance until when he was 21. that fate brought us together again. Because what happened was we've not had contact for all those years from age of 15 till around age of 21. So in 2014, I went to Nigeria as part of my work to film some things in the Niger Delta area, and we were unfortunate enough, 5 of us, 2 Nigerian Dutch guys and 3 white Dutch people, we got into the crossfire of kidnappers, and we were brutally kidnapped, beaten, and lost all my equipment and everything. And even when we were released with the Nigerians first, we still had to spend a night in the Nigerian police jail. It was a very traumatic period. It was, let's just keep it that way. It was a really very traumatic period that you don't wish on anybody. The silver lining there, because there is a silver lining, was world news. It was on CNN. It was all on the newspaper. Apparently, my son, Dayo, watched the news and knew his father was in harm's way. And I came back to the Netherlands and I saw a message from him that was like, oh, Dad, I had this, I don't want to lose you. He wrote that while I was still in Nigeria, hoping that I will be able to find it, that no, this is not how we planned it. He was really shocked and he really wants to have contact. He hopes that I will come back alive. And now I know at that time he was fighting a lot of demons. And that was also one of the reasons why he didn't want any contact at that time that he withdrew. But, knowing his dad was in harm's way, he wanted me to be safe, and he was like, if we come back and when you come back, we need to meet. So when I came back, I didn't actually see it at that moment, because then I was 2 weeks after that incident, because I had already booked that flight. I was in Kenya. It was actually in Kenya that I saw that. So and he said he wrote also a second one, like he joined Facebook, because that was where he could find me, because normally it's not on Facebook. So I wrote a reply back to tell him I was okay, how we're gonna meet and all of that. And and on Father's Day, really Father's Day 2014, we met again with my 2 other boys. It was one of the happiest days of my life, because I could see all my 3 boys together again in one place. It was a happy day, and for me seeing him, wow, you are a man now. When we last saw, he was a boy, but now he's a man. That was something beautiful to see. And from that moment on until the day he died, we never lost sight of each other. We were always confiding in each other. He told me about all his difficulties, not the depression part, because that he never ever told me, but difficulties with studying, difficulties with sleeping, finding his rhythm, with work, with everything. He was able to share what he could share at that moment. But I was really very proud of him, and also myself as a man and I'm still evolving. I had evolved in the way you look at children. I am an African. I was always within my friends very soft with my children, but my children still thought I was very strict, but you evolve. I'm very practical. What works? I didn't want to have a bad relationship with my children. We have to be open to learning. This is a new generation. This is how they see things. You have to see them, you have to listen to them, and you have to change your ways. I think it's Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie who just said a couple of weeks ago, teachers always think like, if I'm really hard on those students, then they will respect them. But being hard for no reason at all, just to get respect, those people start to fear you. And that was, I think, what Dayo had at that time, fear. It wasn't anything like respecting his dad. He loved his dad, but he feared him. So he didn't want to have to live in fear. So it was the logical thing. He stayed away. Dayo likes football. He really was a football fanatic. Barcelona, Manchester United, Feyenoord. Those were his teams. And of course, on national level, the Green Eagles of Nigeria. Those were the teams he loved. And he was a football fanatic. He played football himself a bit. And then in 2017, I just called him like, would you like to go with me to Zanzibar? And he was like, what a question, let's go. Just two of us as two adults, father and son, in Africa. It was a great 9 days we spent in Zanzibar at that time. And that was where we also had a lot of talk, and told me about how he perceived that I was treating him, and sometimes unfairly, when he was visiting. And that was a period we had a heart-to-heart talk. It was really hard to hear, not because of anything, but just knowing how much pain that caused him at that time. So, and I apologized, and he said, don't. He already forgave me a long time ago. And that's my boy. He's a lot of things. He's so like, that's the past. Let's move on with the future. That's how he deals with a lot of situations. He doesn't stay too long in misery. He told me of his pain, but he also told me that I've been a better father for him, that I've done a lot to make up for the lost time. But I hope he meant that. It was also a wake-up call. There was a moment where I felt we really bonded. That was really our we moment, us moment, Papa and child. Even though he had this deference for me as a father, he always looked up to me in one way that I always felt uncomfortable. It's very ironic. He didn't like the way I treated him, but still he saw me as a perfect person, a perfect father. He actually even wrote it in his suicide note to me. When we were leaving back from Zanzibar, the flight messed up our sitting arrangements because we had both of us along. I'm 1.94 m, he's 2 meters. So whenever we're traveling like that, we always reserve and buy extra leg room. And we did that, and these people messed up in the seat we bought, and there was a lot of delays, and I just got angry, because when I get angry, I really get angry. And he'd seen that before. Somebody was already making trouble in the aeroplane, so the police had to take that person off, and that means that person was going to miss their flight, and he didn't want that to happen with us. So I think that was the only time he actually raised his voice a bit to me, like, don't you dare get angry. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, at the back of my mind, like, that's my boy. And I just calmed down. And then I remember getting back here and he was going to go back to his base. And I said, I hope this is not going to be a repeat of then, that you just go back and then we don't see any more. He said, why would I do that? And he never did that. We've had some really good times together. Every December we meet also with these other cousins, either in Amersfoort or in Rotterdam, where I live now. It was always nice. Last year, 2022, he got his own flat finally. Before that, I think for about 5 years, he lived together with somebody on a what we call in the Netherlands the woonboot. Those are houses on water. It's a boat where you can live. It's actually a house built on water. So it floats, floating houses. Just after the lockdown, he got his flat, bought a car, not knowing that car was going to be his weapon of self-destruction later. Used that as a kind of suicide missile to kill himself. When I look around, looking at his picture, all the things that we've done together, all the discussions, Formula One, we were both crazy when Formula One was no longer on terrestrial channel. He just took a subscription last year so that we could both watch, and he shared the password with me, and he's watching Formula One, I'm watching here, we are texting each other about the race. He was always very proud of his younger brother, who's a gamer. So whenever he goes somewhere to play and there is a live stream, he really wanted to have it, and he used to say how proud he was of him, and he was also a gamer. And after his death, we got a letter because one guy approached Darius' cousin after a week of his death, like, hey, are you family of Dario? We've not seen him online for a long while. So the cousin approached me like, what am I going to do now? So I just told the cousin, like, just tell them he died, because probably he's a part of an online community. I was even surprised that an online community of gamers will miss somebody. These guys really searched for him because they found his work, they found his mother. They then wrote an email to the mother, a long email describing their years and that they were part of a larger group, and then they became more and more closer, so that at a point they were 3 of them left who were really very compatible and they could share everything. One of those guys is living in England. I don't know where the other one lives, and that they were planning to meet next year physically. And when I see people who have not even met him, when I read what they say about him, I'm just like, yeah, that's my boy. Beautiful boy. He was always thinking of others before himself. He didn't also want to disappoint anybody. He will put the whole world ahead of himself. Those guys described how he helped them through some period of self-doubt also. And he was also having doubts. On his birthday, I was like, hey, you're gonna be 30 this year, so can I come and visit you? And he said no, actually he was going to spend that day with his mom and the other family. After his death, I later heard also from the mom that he didn't spend any of those with her. because they were going to come, and he just said, no, don't come. So nobody knew what was with him. You cannot force a 30-year-old to receive you. So that was it. So I didn't go. Of course, as usual, I sent him some gift, called him, and we spoke. And the next time I saw him was July 30th, on World Friendship Day, because I had invited all my friends and I invited him also. It was a beautiful day. We spoke about a lot of things, and then the next day he went back. But that was then the last time I ever saw him physically. And we had some contact on a day of the Sanford Formula One, which he went with his best friend. Then he told me he arrived home around 11:30 in the evening. And I think a couple of days later, I sent some pictures of the food I was eating that day I just made. Yeah, because he was always interested in African food, not knowing all those times he was sinking further and further into the tunnel of darkness. Yeah, there are so many stories I could tell about him. The way he sees things. Yeah, we were so much alike in a lot of ways. That was scary. Sometimes when we are speaking, I knew what he was going to say. He knew what I was going to say. We were so much alike in a lot of ways, in a lot of the ways we think. And whether it's on football, whether it's on politics, whether it's on... It could be anything. That's my boy. If you did not know him, now you know a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. And even me, I knew a tiny, tiny bit of him. Until the next time, if you are listening to this or you are watching this and you feel like this story affects you, or this story of young man committing suicide resonates with you because you are also feeling depressed, feeling helpless, feeling alone, please try and reach out to somebody, anybody, therapist, a doctor, a friend, family, a stranger. Try and talk to them, because sometimes just talking about it helps. We will not always have the solution to everything, but just talking about it helps. Don't feel alone in the world. There are always people who genuinely care about you. If you open your eyes, you will find them. Because sometimes when we don't know things are happening, we cannot offer a helping hand. Take care of yourselves.